It is my incredibly great pleasure to introduce Pema Chodron as our guest teacher today. Pema Chodron is an American monastic in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition. She is the spiritual director of Gampo Abbey Monastery in Nova Scotia, Canada, and is the author of several dozen books, including When Things Fall Apart and her latest title, Welcoming the Unwelcome, from Shambhala Publications. Ani Pema, we are so grateful to you for being here with us today. I'll say a few notes about our call today. This session will be recorded, so you can view the recordings as well as the schedule for upcoming sessions at trischool.org/live. We are offering these sessions for free, and so we appreciate any donations you're able to give to TriSchool to help us continue providing these opportunities for everyone to connect with wonderful teachers like Pema Chodron during these challenging times. You can do so at trischool.org/donate. And today on our call, Ani Pema will start by sharing a few words and leading us in a guided practice. And toward the end of the call, we'll have some time for Q&A. So you can post questions in the Q&A panel, which is found through the button below the video screen. And Ani Pema has also asked that we make this more interactive today. And so anyone who is willing and able with audio and video can come on screen and ask a question live. So please write your questions anyway in the Q&A panel and press the raise hand button in the Zoom participants window so we know that you have audio and video capability. And please note that if you raise your hand to come on screen, you will be part of the recording. And if you're tuning in today from Facebook Live, you can post a question in the comment field and we will add it to the list of questions in text that I will read out. We'll get to as many questions as we're able to during the hour-long call, but apologies in advance if we're not able to get to your question today. There are over 3,000 people tuning in live right now, and we're really happy to welcome all of you. So thank you so much, Ani Pema, for joining us today, and I will turn it over to you now.
Hello, everybody. I am really happy to be able to connect with you all. I would want very much to sort of hear where you're at, and that's why I want to emphasize mostly Q&A so that I have a sense of where your questions really are, rather than me teaching you something to a sort of like a blank space and not really sure exactly what everybody's going through. But I do know for sure that there is a lot of fear in various forms, such as, panic, sort of underlying anxiety and nervousness, things like that. And then the offshoots from that, like anger, irritation, and so forth. So I wanted to start with a short meditation of just with either your eyes open or closed. If we could just begin with you just checking in, feeling. And I thought in particular, why don't you check in with how you're feeling in your body? If you are feeling anxiety, for instance, the off chance that you just might be feeling anxiety, then you will feel it in your body someplace. And so I want to just begin with a short meditation, as I say, of just feeling what you're feeling right now in this moment. So let's do that for a bit. Unfortunately, I don't have a clock, but I'll just try to sense it. And as I say, the eyes can be open or closed. So how are you feeling physically right now? See if you can feel it in your body, locate it in your body, whatever it is you're feeling. And remembering that whatever it is you're feeling is fine, not a problem. It's just a process of connecting in, finding out where you are without judging it as bad or good.
And whatever it is that you're feeling right now, it's actually your link, your connection with what other people all over the planet are feeling. If you're feeling any variation on anxiety or fear, link with what other people are feeling. If you're feeling any variation on anger or aggression, irritation, frustration, even boredom, it's a link with what other people are feeling. So for just a few minutes, we could do a variation on the Tonglen practice of standing in someone else's shoes. So to the degree that you can touch in and feel what you're feeling, when you breathe in, breathe that in. Breathe it in to your heart area, to breathe it into your whole body, into
feeling of a big space. Breathe out, send out. I mean, the out breath can be like a sigh of relief. And sending out that relaxation or sigh of relief to everyone all over the planet. You could start with people that you know personally and just do it person by person. Or you could get as vast as looking at the Earth from the moon and doing it for the entire planet. So as you breathe in that feeling, whatever it might be. Breathe it in, and as you breathe in, like open and relax. Taking it in, feeling it, relaxing out, sending that relaxation out to everyone. Breathing in for everyone. Your connection with everybody as you breathe in. We're all in the same boat here. Relaxing out, sending out that relaxation or spaciousness to everyone. Let the in-breath be an opening and be very relaxing, sense of like opening, 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 then relax out. You're doing it for yourself and for everybody else who's in the same boat. Do this for your friends and family. Do it for your country that you're in, and for the whole earth. All of us on this earth. On the in-breath, connecting with the suffering, widespread suffering, On the out breath, you're sending love and relief. Whatever helps people to relax and open to the situation just as it is. Maybe that's enough for now. It's pretty short, not being able to go very deeply probably, but I'd like to start hearing from you and hear your questions. I'd appreciate that a lot.
Wonderful. Thank you, Ani Pema. So I'll just remind everyone that we invite you to come on screen and ask your questions live to make this more interactive. So if you can do that, please post your question in the Q&A panel and also raise your hand in Zoom. In the meantime, I will start with one text question that has come in about the Tonglen practice, and then we'll invite the first person.
Mm-hmm.
So, Ani Pema, you've mentioned previously in talks that when doing Tonglen, to breathe the suffering and pain into the great blue sky, not one's own body or person. Can you say more about whether it matters enormously how that process is done, if we're supposed to take in the pain, in the suffering personally, or have it go more into an expanse? Thank you.
Well, the way I was just teaching it now is not completely traditional, but I just wanted to give the feeling that it is your own body, but the sense of a heart, I often would teach it as a heart, that the heart just gets wider and wider and wider as you breathe in, rather than more and more contracted. Your heart gets very big, so that breathing in, even that's dealing with suffering or pain, but there's a sense of letting it be there just as it is, and not hardening against it or softening against it. So when I say the big blue sky, I don't really mean to jump over your, but I wanted to give a feeling of a lot of space, a lot of space, for it to come into a big space and then send it out into a big space, so that the practice has a feeling of relaxing or something soothing about it, even though it's dealing directly with suffering and pain. So when there's suffering and pain, as we know, we tend to get very contracted and fearful. And this is sort of a way of using our ability to love each other and our compassion for one another, using it as a vehicle for opening to our own whatever we're going through that's painful and difficult, and then letting that be our connection with other people. So we do it for ourselves and simultaneously for everybody else who's feeling that way. So I don't know if that answers the question. You could ask more if you wish.
Thank you, Pema. We have a question now from Claudia Lane. Claudia, I have promoted you to a panelist. You have joined us. Thank you. I will now unmute you. You can ask your question.
Ani Pema, it is so wonderful to see you. It fills my heart. My question is about fear. I am a nurse, and the current conditions, I am so afraid to go into the hospital to take care of people. And I struggle with running away from the fear and then wanting to go forward and face the fear. If you could just speak a little bit about leaning into the fear and then what it is that we can all do when we're faced with such an enormous problem. Thank you, Annie.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I want to say that fear is absolutely a natural response to what's going on. So one doesn't have to feel that the fear itself is problematic in any way. It's just a natural response. And I think that in giving that variation on Tonglen that I gave there, that was really from my part coming from a place of when we can put ourselves in other people's shoes, such as the fear of all the people in the hospital, all the other doctors, nurses, and the people that are there because they're so terribly ill. I think somehow the getting in touch with your heart, getting vulnerable and tender in you is the most healing thing that one can do. So, for instance, when you go into work, and I don't want to, say that there's like a magic thing, but if you go in and you acknowledge that you're feeling a lot of fear, and you go to work with that fear, and then you see it everywhere, there's a sense you could even start breathing it in and say, may we all be free of it, and send out love and care and the kind of thing that you would like to have if you were in one of those beds, and to the other nurses and to the doctors. And there's something healing about our interconnectedness. Our interconnectedness can heal us rather than separate us. Do you see what I'm saying? I don't know. Do you want to ask more? Because whatever I say seems a little inadequate, but I do feel that the connection with other people. So in other words, starting to do the Tonglen for yourself and how that links you with everybody else. I think that's the best thing you can possibly do, and know that the fear is just natural, natural to the fear that you could catch the illness and die yourself. I mean, I'm sure it goes a long way. And not to get too caught up in storylines because they will take you down every time, So let it be about heart connection. So.
We have a question from Phil.
Hello, Phil.
Hi there. Good morning. Thank you for doing this.
You're welcome.
I guess my question is, I try to be and consider myself a pretty compassionate person. And I also consider myself to be a pretty logic-based scientific person. And so I see a lot of people, some locally and certainly a lot nationally, who are ignoring what I feel like I could call true ways that we can lessen the impact of what's happening right now. And they're ignoring them or dismissing them. And that causes, any of the either anger or confusion or even feeling better than them or all of that stuff, which I feel like they're almost two separate things, because I feel like nothing emotional is going to change the facts of this. And I'm trying to figure out the useful bridge between the two, if there is one. Maybe that's the wrong question.
No, not the wrong question. No, it's a good question. An excellent question, really. So, do you think that people are ignoring it because they're afraid and they just don't want to face what might really be going on?
In my better moments, I do, yes. I think that there is also...
And in your worst moments, what do you think?
In my worst moments, it's a bit about understanding that people have a hard time connecting future suffering with right now, and thinking that we have a hard time changing, which I guess is a form of sort of denying it as well, or being afraid of it.
That's right. Well, that could bring some compassion also, the people don't have that capacity to the people that are ignoring. I was just talking to my son. He was saying the exact thing you're saying, and feeling that he couldn't grasp it. Why? But I think not being able to see you just feeling what you're feeling right now, and not being able to look ahead in terms of how the virus spreads. One could have some compassion too for that inability to actually do that, particularly if it's going to end up impacting them or people they love very dearly.
Of course.
So I don't know. Somehow, in a case like that, where it can definitely make one very angry. If maybe everything from irritated to completely furious. But of course, that's not going to help. I think a lot now about what are we adding to the planet? What are we adding to the planet? So when one of us starts getting really irritable and angry at other people, well, definitely we don't need that, to add it to the planet. And so if one is panicking, that we certainly don't need to add that to the planet either, So somehow, if each of us takes personal responsibility for our own minds, and then also our own hearts, I think really that's it. To just keep coming back to, there's these practices like, just like me, this living and possibly spreading the virus. Just like me, this person really doesn't want to suffer. Just like me, this person wants to be happy. Nevertheless, they, just like most human beings, they don't get the cause and effect of where that true happiness comes from, where the true suffering comes from. So one could have a sense of empathy even while one was angry, And then when you feel anger, say, well, it's not that this is what I'm feeling. I'm feeling angry. And I don't have to spin out on it. And I don't have to be ashamed of myself. I'm just not going to act or speak out, And right. And if I have it in me right now, I might have it in me right now, but not later or something. I'm going to try to put myself in these people and have some sense of empathetic compassion and at least understanding, understanding the vulnerability of humanity.
Right. That feels very helpful, and it's a reminder that you just can't change other people, and all you can do is make a space. Maybe just make a space that is as easy as could be for them to move into if they're ready, or any of that.
I love it. That's the message, isn't it? We just can't control other people. That's
right. I have my practice model on the couch behind me. I'm sorry.
I keep looking over there.
Yes.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
So I'm going to ask a question that came in through Facebook text from Celia. What advice or guidance can you offer for planning and preparing and staying present? She appreciates what you've said about storylines, but some seem like rational stories to follow, like buying enough food to prepare for potential shortages.
Yeah. But what was the question exactly? How can you stay present and prepared at the same time?
Yes, basically how to go through this feeling of needing to prepare but staying present through that.
Right. Well, I think see what's driving you in a way, the toilet paper issue was in the news a lot a couple of weeks ago anyway, about people hoarding. I think notice if it's coming from a place of panic, and then how much do you really need of each item? There has to be some kind of like, how much of it is actually really practical and necessary? Like you shop every 2 weeks and you need to get enough to get you through 2 weeks, and maybe some things you get more of. But how much is it that your mind is being sensible and making good choices? And how much of it is panic driven and selfish? Selfish in the sense of that you take everything and then there's not enough for somebody else. So I think there has to be, in terms of being present, you could be present with the Shenpa, if you know that term of wanting it to go a certain way, and feeling and attachment to wanting other people to do it right, like we were discussing with the man just before. But I think if you can be present with what you're feeling, and then maybe even, pause for quite a while before you go to the grocery store and make the list, and, maybe a couple of days ahead of time, and really go over it and make sure, do you really need that many rolls of toilet paper or whatever it might be, And it's interesting here up in Nova Scotia, things are, you just, when you go to the grocery store, you, even in normal times, you don't expect to get everything you're going to get. So you just think that you're going to put it on time, and maybe if it's 3 weeks in a row where you can't get potatoes, then you might, when you finally can get potatoes, you might get a really large bag, So something like that just sort of makes sense. But I guess what I'm trying to address is the fact that people panic and overbuy, and it feeds into your sense of holding on to yourself so tightly, when what actually is going to soothe you and all of us is opening up the scope and including other people, looking out our eyes at other people and seeing what they're going through, and they're going through just what we are in some variation, and putting letting our hearts open to this situation and be opened by this situation rather than closed in fear. So somehow I might not be quite to what you were asking, but what I'm addressing, I think, is people's tendency to panic and get very tight and unreasonable, actually, instead of sensible. And therefore that doesn't really acknowledge how interconnected we are in this whole thing, and how we have to care for each other and watch out for each other. So I hope that addresses it somewhat.
All right, we have a question from Pamela. Pamela, I will unmute you and ask you to start your video.
Hello?
Pamela Sanchez. Hello.
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 This is
Hello.
Good morning, good afternoon.
Good morning.
I have my question is, because I have two small daughters, and we here have been in not a bad situation at all, but they constantly ask when we're going to go back home, and the coronavirus and these terms that they really don't understand. And I would really like to be able to not inflict fear to them, because I am not scared, but how to explain to them in simple ways so that they don't get scared either. because when they talk to my mother or when they talk to other people that are outside the circle that we live in right now,
Right.
it's all about panicking.
Right. Well, it's interesting when you ask this. I think about Mr. Rogers, and there was all those movies about him last year, and how he always would address the children through his puppet. Remember? I don't know. Are you familiar with Mr. Rogers?
No.
It was his television show for little kids.
Uh-huh.
But one of the things that he would do would be to address issues that were up. So, for instance, if Mr. Rogers was on television now, this children's show, he would be addressing to really little kids about the coronavirus. And so he would have this hand puppet would say, "Mr. Rogers, what's a coronavirus?" And then Mr. Rogers would say in his very gentle way, "Oh, it's like a bad flu that for some reason people because we're really like one big family on this earth, and so in this case, so many people are catching this flu, and but you do not have to be afraid. We're in this very safe place, and we can have a happy life like we always do. But it's good to know that there's people that have this bad flu, and we could be saying prayers for them, or we could be when we eat our food, we could say, may the people who are feeling sick from the virus be better. Things that little kids understand. I mean, you as a mom, you could say it much better than me. But I think the point was, the Mr. Rogers kind of lesson was that he didn't scoot around it because the kids are picking it up, And you can even say, grandma is, because she's old, she gets more scared than some people do. So you just have to be very sweet with grandma and just know that grandma's like that sometimes. But I'm not scared. So you don't have to be scared. We're in such a good place here, and like that, I don't know, you'll find your way, but I think the idea is to just address it really honestly, but tenderly and sweetly, bring out their good children's heart, towards, I don't know, what would you say as a mom?
Well,
kind of
I have told them about that. I have told them that it's like a really bad flu, and exactly that people are scared. But we don't have to be scared because we're very blessed to have good food, to be in a place with good air, to be in a place where we can where we have the sun. But I guess my biggest concern was my mother, because even though she's not in a bad position, my daughters are very attached to her, and when they talk to her, she is very capable of passing on to her fears, and that's what I don't want. That's because I don't think they have.
Can you talk to your mom? Can you talk to your mom, sometime when the kids are off playing or something, and just say, let's work together to not frighten the children. You and I can talk, and you can, but with the kids, let's not, because they don't understand very well, and so let's make a real joint effort to not frighten them. And so with them, just talk about things that you would normally talk about to them if nothing was happening.
Okay,
something like that, and then with the children, in case your mom, forgets or finds that very hard, then with the children, you can just say, grandma's loves you, and that's why she's worried, but grandma just worries, I think grandma worries too much and that we don't have to worry, but things that are loving and respectful. And then let's say, let's make a picture for grandma to cheer her up. Let's cook some cookies and pretend we're all to cheer her up. Things that, so they begin to feel like they're trying to help her feel better. Something like that.
I appreciate that very much. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Thank you for that. I have one text question here from Kevin. He asks, Pema, can you speak of death and impermanence? Not physical death necessarily, but more the death of our old paradigms and ways of being. What practice can you suggest for us to face the gift of death so we can be more open to the new wanting to be born?
Oh my goodness, Kevin, what a question. It's a wonderful question. But I feel like I could give 10-day seminar on the topic. But I like what you're saying about the death. That's the opportunity of this time, really. There's some old paradigms that would be good to have die. And if this pandemic helps some of those die, that would be a wonderful thing. And in terms of what practices to do, I think the main practice is to be fully present with what's happening with you now and notice any resistance. You say impermanence and death. Notice any fear in you of uncertainty, which is a form of impermanence and death, of insecurity, which is a form of impermanence and death. Any tendency on your part to be clutching and holding on and contracting, actually, that was the best word, I think. And then the best practice would be to acknowledge that contraction, not make it bad. There's nothing wrong with that, but to feel it as fully as you possibly can. And if sometimes the practice that people sometimes do, if they're really feeling caught in contraction, in fear of uncertainty and death, fear of impermanence and insecurity, they breathe in very deeply and relax out very deeply. You've probably done that practice where you go, so it's not about trying to make it sweet, to sweeten it up exactly, but it's relax just as things are. And it's, I would say, growing your capacity to be able to hold feelings like uncertainty, growing your capacity to be able to hold impermanence, growing your capacity to be able to be open to not controlling things, which you can't anyway, but open to, where is this going? What's going to happen to me personally? How is this going to impact my life and the life of my friends? How is this going to shift the planet? And just being open and instead of afraid of how it might go, open to it. And we could hope that there will be some very good things that will come out of this. But we don't know. So we have to wait with an open heart and an open mind, not close down on impermanence and death at an everyday level. I'm sorry not to be able to go back and forth with you, but because that's such an interesting question, but hopefully that's some help.
Thank you. We have a question from Lindsay. Lindsay, if you are there, you have become a panelist. I will unmute you and you can start your video.
Okay.
Hello, Lindsay.
Hi, can you see me?
I can. Can you see
Wow.
me?
I'm sorry. Oh, yes, I can see you.
Can you?
Yes,
Yeah.
I can. Thank you. I'm a little nervous
Where
knowing that
are
all of these
you?
people are watching. I'm in Boulder.
Look at the big blue sky.
Yes, it's a
So
wonderful place
let's
to be. So first of all, I wanted to, before I forget, thank Pamela for her insightful question, because I'm dealing with a similar situation, having two young children at home. And I also just wanted to say thank you to you for your wisdom and your writings. When Things Fall Apart has been a long time favorite of mine and a long time go-to. And when I first read it, it was truly life-changing. And I never really thought that I would actually get to have face-to-face time with you. So this is a real treat, and I thank you. So my question isn't quite as specific to the current situation, although I'm sure it applies in some ways. But I wanted to ask, I always have trouble with decision making. That's something that I've noticed in my adult life that I struggle with. It brings up a lot of anxiety for me. I'm a person who goes back and forth, over analyzes, and just struggles in general. And so I wanted to ask you what specific advice you would give around that, what you maybe practice yourself when you're faced with tough decisions. Thank you.
Oh my gosh. Well, I always say the same thing. I mean, I answer all exactly the same way, it seems to me. And of course, you have to act and you have to say something, you have to do something, you have to make the decision, right? But I think in the process of it, if you can become very, very familiar with what that feels like to the decision, the feeling of like caught in that, and that's what that's where it has a lot of applicability to what's happening now with the virus, is being able to hold really uncomfortable feelings without contracting, without going inward too much, getting caught up in oneself too much in terms of the reason that's a problem, getting too self-centered, is because it increases the suffering. And if you want to find a way to relax and open and be able to have the whole thing keep moving, so to speak, instead of getting caught, it has to be more that you use what you're feeling as a link with other people. In other words, some way to be able to look out your eyes and be there for other people because you vote. So something like what you feel, which is so painful for you, I'm sure if you're like most human beings, it causes you to get more self-centered because you worry about yourself, and it's very easy to keep going in, and lots of storyline, right? Isn't there usually quite a lot of storyline? Yeah. So to the best of your ability, through meditation as a way to become more adept at this, you let those storylines go and be with the feeling, underneath. Interestingly enough, even though this seems like it doesn't make sense rationally, because rationally you would keep the storyline going till you just can figure out what decision to make. However, if you have this approach of sitting still, agitation, or however you want to describe it, you'd be very surprised at how much clearer a way to go come. It's like creative energy that allows you to go to make a decision comes out of that stillness, or out of that direct, immediate touching into the immediacy of your experience. And what's really important is don't make that experience bad. Just say, it's just a sensation. It's just what I'm feeling. And many people feel this kind of thing. Doesn't say there's anything wrong with me. Not at all. I'm an ordinary human being, and but I'm sort of dumb about what's going to help me, if you know what I mean. So,
Yes.
don't mean to insult you there. I'm talking about human race, and
Right.
so yeah. So the decision to come out of that stillness and out of the mind spinning.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
All right, we have a question from Michael.
Michael Bouchard.
Hello, Pema.
Hello, Michael. Where are you?
I'm in Vancouver, British Columbia, actually New Westminster, with my wife here, Anne.
Hi, Pema.
Hello, Anne. BC, other side of the continent from Nova Scotia.
I'd also like to thank Lindsay. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I'd also like to thank Lindsay because I liked her question around decision making and found that your answer very helpful. My question is around when I'm working to feel what I'm feeling, but I'm feeling very uncomfortable, and my mind goes into a pattern of I have to do something to distract. And often I can stop that process, but sometimes it feels almost like a powerful train that's going there anyway. When I get into the habitual pattern, I have a little bit of awareness that I'm in a pattern and it's not helpful and I'm distracting myself, but I don't feel like I have a lot of choice. Is there anything that might help in that situation?
Yeah, I think everyone listening is familiar with what you're describing right there. So, there's different stages at which you can catch emotions. Am I right to be addressing it as an emotion?
Yes.
And so you're describing it at the hardest stage to relate to. And that's when it's already full blown and moving rapidly in the direction of, here come the whole family is coming. This is fun. Nothing distracting about this. So you're talking about as at the most difficult time to work with it. So give yourself a break about that. But in the meantime, you could start to train with it, like catching it at the sort of ember stage. Now, you might say that's very, very hard to do, but actually, having worked with this a lot and talked to many people who work with it, it's very possible to catch it at the ember stage. But mostly what you do is you work with less highly charged, but similar kinds of emotional responses, if that makes sense. In other words, more lightweight. And so then you, for instance, someone is talking to you, and then you might just all of a sudden pause and say, wait a second, I'm starting to get angry here. Do you see what I'm saying? Like you feel it starting and you actually let them know too. You say, so wait a minute, let's just kind of I need to kind of slow down here. So that's what I mean by ember stage. So you're not always talking with somebody, but you yourself say to yourself, I'm beginning to feel angry here, or I'm beginning to feel anxious here, or I'm beginning to feel jumpy, And so you train in catching it at the ember stage. And so working with it that way, you are simultaneously, interestingly enough, working with it when it's out of control. Because the more you can train in that lightweight situation and getting the feeling of what it feels like before it's ignited, before kerosene has been poured on the flame, then curiously enough, even when you're in the middle of it, and it's already sort of out of control, there's a part of you, your wisdom part, I suppose you could say, that's watching the whole thing happening. And that's very different than being completely out of control and no recognition at all of what is happening to you. So I advise this ember stage type practice as a way of working at any stage at all. And then the other thing is, should you happen to get carried away, and the whole thing is too much for you, and you speak and act out of it, then you can go back over it afterwards. Go back over it afterwards and just, go quietly somewhere and just relive the whole thing and then rerun it, get in touch with the whole power of the emotion later on. And that also is training you for the future, for the next time this comes up. So I hope that's some help.
Thank you so much, Pema.
You're welcome. Nice to see you all.
Thank you.
All right. I think we'll probably just have time for one more. So I have a question from Shane.
Hi.
Zane.
Hi.
Look at you with your green hair.
Yeah.
How nice.
Thank you. My question is about loneliness, because that's actually an emotion that hasn't been mentioned today yet. A lot of people are with their families or still working in the hospitals, but a lot of us are living completely alone in this time. And for me, I've been practicing Tonglen every day because I do feel so connected to so many people in this aloneness. But I was just wondering if you could speak to loneliness as an emotion that's coming up for so many people right now, and how we can maybe cope with that when we're not able to be with people except for through a screen.
Yeah. I think this is a kind of such a tender emotion, as opposed to some of the harder edged emotions. Loneliness, if it even is an emotion, it's certainly a very heartfelt feeling. And again, I feel like with all of these, with loneliness in this case, it's a natural response to being isolated, to being in quarantine, to not being able to go out and see your friends. It's just a natural response to that. So given that that's so, then the thing is how to make friends, right? How to make friends with yourself. In this case, how to be friendly to your loneliness. As corny as that might sound. But actually that gentle approach, that warm-hearted approach is so healing, And mine, you might know, was Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche, and he used to make a distinction between loneliness and aloneness. And he said loneliness has a kind of restless quality to it. In other words, do you know what I mean by restless? It's like you want it to go away, sort of.
Yeah.
Right? Is that right?
Yes, I'm very
so
familiar.
He said you could feel exactly. Yeah, and he said you could feel exactly the same thing, exactly, no changes at all, but relax with it and be okay with it and say, know it, be friendly with it, be gentle with it, honest and gentle and friendly, like a loving kindness towards the loneliness. And then it could shift. I mean, I don't want to have you, hoping or anything, but he would keep the same thing that we call loneliness because it's restless. We could hold those very same feelings and call it aloneness, which is like a quality of enlightened people. Quality of enlightened people is that they know that they were born alone, they will die alone. In terms of nobody goes with you, and they see the beauty of that feeling, the almost romantic quality of that feeling, and they And then it lets them connect with the heart of everybody else who also is actually just alone, but is feeling this like, this is bad, I want to get away from it. So it's somehow soothing that restlessness and being able to be okay with just feeling that as a normal, natural response to the situation that you and millions of other people are in. And right?
And what was the last?
Because at least, thank goodness for the internet, because we can at least see each other, you know? I get to see your green hair, you know, and that's sort of great. Yeah. So if you do meditate, do you meditate?
Yes. Yeah.
So it's a good time. Yeah, good. I'm glad you are. And it's a good time, you know, you could sort of like think of it as a retreat time, that this isn't going to last forever, and I'll have to go back to my busy life, and it will have the upside of being able to be with my friends and everything, but I won't have the kind of time I have now. So see the preciousness of this time as well, you know.
Thank you so much.
And especially you, because you're in a privileged situation. You're suffering loneliness, and you're using it in your practice, and you know that there's people that are packed into small spaces and getting on each other's nerves, and there's also people that are in desperate situations, you know.
Right.
So preciousness, yeah. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
All right. Well, we're close to the end. I could do one more question if you'd like.
Sure, let's do one more.
Okay. This one came in text, but I think it's one that a lot of people have asked. So about the Tonglen practice, what if I feel too much despair, anger, hopelessness, and feel like I don't have any peace or love to exhale or send to others?
Yeah. Well, that's a very common feeling also. Very, very common feeling. I would say in situations like that, which, as you say, very popular, not popular, but very widespread kind of feeling, start to collect out-breath material. Start to collect out-breath material. So in other words, anything pleasant that happens to you in your life, each day of your life, it either actually jot it down, like in a journal, or just keep it in mind. You know, this is out-breath material. This is the kind of thing I can wish for other people to have. So take your experience of any sweetness, any kindness, any feeling of pleasure, and think of that as something that you want to share with other people. And begin with sharing it with people that you love, or even distressing, you know, people that are ill, and you would like to be able to do something to help them. So I'm suggesting that you put the emphasis on what I'm calling out-breath material, and just send whatever is good in your life. Be willing to share it, or breathe it out to other people, or wish for other people to have this. And then in terms of the in-breath, that's harder to work with. But you, again, you don't start with the overwhelming feelings. You just start with very small feelings, like the kind of feeling that you might feel if a mosquito was buzzing around and irritating, you know, like mild irritation. And you get in the habit of just, even if you can't breathe in, of connecting with that feeling of irritation with curiosity and with complete acceptance, letting it be okay. And like there's nothing wrong with you as a human being that you have these overwhelming feelings, strong emotions. It's very natural. And so I guess the practice would be to use this time to move from not being able to connect at all with any sense of touching into difficult feelings. Use it by connecting with difficult feelings that are what I would call lightweight, lightweight difficult feelings. And if connecting with what's painful and difficult still seems impossible, then just emphasize out-breath material and collect examples of out-breath material and connect with other people that way. I can't overemphasize, I think, the healing quality of empathy, the healing quality of realizing we're so interconnected, and that's like one of the most profound Buddhist teachings, and now it's so evident to everybody. It's like no longer in the realm of philosophy or esoteric Buddhist teachings. It's just obvious. And in that way, we can say, well, since we're all interconnected, what do we want for ourselves? What do we want for everybody else? What would we like to spread out over the planet so that that's what becomes contagious, so that we ourselves would catch this particular virus of loving kindness, for instance, So it takes a lot of courage to do this in-breath kind of thing. It takes a lot of courage to connect with difficult feelings. So give yourself a break about that. Try it with very lightweight things, as I say. Disappointment at them having run out of toilet paper at the grocery store or something like that. And then collect out-breath material. So hopefully that's some help to you.
Well, thank you so much, Ani Pema, for practicing and sharing.
You're so welcome, Gloria.
And thank you, everyone, for joining us on this call.